I want to be put away, or I can't hurt anyone.
No.
Does he stop resisting?
No.
Tell the jury, what is the very first moment in your contact with the defendant when he stops resisting and starts saying, Alec made me do it?
While Josh is on top of him and I have gained possession of the handgun.
This is Devon Erickson. He became infamous on May 7th, 2019 for his involvement in a school shooting at STEM School Highlands Ranch in Douglas County, Colorado. This charter school, nestled in the Denver suburb of Highlands Ranch, was a vibrant place for about 1,850 students. That day, however, it was transformed into a scene of terror. Erickson, alongside his accomplice Alec McKinney, walked into the school carrying handguns and other weapons hidden in guitar cases. Their attack resulted in one student's tragic death and injuries to 8 others. The incident unfolded quickly. At around 1:53 p.m., Erickson and McKinney began shooting in different parts of the school. As chaos increased, the school's lockdown protocol was activated, and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office issued an urgent warning on Twitter, advising people to avoid the area. The police arrived just 2 minutes after the first 911 call, aided by a bomb disposal robot that was sent due to the discovery of tactical gear in one of the suspects' vehicles. Thanks to a direct radio link between the school and the sheriff's dispatch, the response was swift and effective. The situation was horrifying. Devon Erickson reportedly shouted, "Nobody move," before Kendrick Castillo, a student, bravely jumped in to tackle him. Castillo was fatally shot in the chest during this confrontation. Erickson was quickly subdued by other students. Meanwhile, Alec McKinney targeted the middle school section, injuring 4 students before being stopped by an armed security guard. McKinney later admitted he'd planned to kill himself but struggled with his gun's safety mechanism and was ultimately captured by the guard. The response was marked by an instance of friendly fire, where a security guard mistakenly fired at a deputy's weapon, but the suspects were taken into custody without further violence. Investigators found several weapons at the scene and in the suspect's possession, including a car with disturbing graffiti at Erickson's home. Among the victims was Kendrick Castillo, the only student killed. He, along with Joshua Jones and Brendan Bialy, had attempted to disarm Erickson. Castillo's brave act cost him his life, while Jones and Bialy sustained injuries. The other students who were injured were fortunate to survive, but the trauma left a lasting impact. Devon Erickson, then 18, and Alec McKinney, 16, were soon arrested.
How many shooters do you have?
2. There's 2, yeah.
Why?
He was making me give him a bunch of stuff, and that was me. I was just supposed to watch it. He was gonna let me live.
Both were students at the same school, and their actions shocked the community. The weapons they used were stolen from a parent, and neither had a history with law enforcement. Media outlets initially avoided naming the suspects to prevent glorifying them. Erickson had a history of making disturbing jokes about school shootings and had a troubling Snapchat username, Devon Kills. He was charged with 30 criminal counts, including first-degree murder. McKinney was also charged and initially faced a possible life sentence. He pled guilty to 17 charges in a plea deal that offered him a chance of parole after 40 years. On the other hand, Erickson pleaded not guilty. During his trial, he portrayed himself as a victim of McKinney's influence.
He's not a monster. He's not a demon, and he's not evil. He's a confused adolescent kid.
But his defense failed to convince the court. McKinney testified against Erickson, exposing their planned conspiracy. Throughout the trial, Erickson avoided eye contact and chose not to provide any explanation or justification for his actions. His defense claimed he was a victim of manipulation, but the jury found him guilty of numerous crimes.
The one who secured the weapons and loaded the weapons. The one who snuck them into the school. The one who blasted a hole in Kendrick Castillo and shot 2 other students. That person is in the courtroom with us right.
The judge described his actions as heinous and handed down a severe sentence.
I consider the things that you did to be so heinous, so violent, and so far-reaching that warrants the following sentence. Counts 1 and 2, which are murder in the first degree. 1 is with deliberation, 2 is extreme indifference. Life without parole, those will run concurrent to each other. As for the death of Kendrick Castillo.
On June 15, 2021, Erickson was convicted of 46 charges and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 1,282 years. He showed little emotion during his sentencing, and his defense attempted to paint him as a confused teenager rather than a cold-blooded criminal. This is Michael Carneal. He was just 14 years old when he committed one of the most shocking school shootings in American history. On December 1st, 1997, Michael walked into Heath High School in West Paducah, Kentucky, carrying a deadly arsenal hidden in a blanket. He had stolen multiple firearms, including rifles, shotguns, and a .22 caliber pistol from his home and a neighbor's house in the days leading up to the attack. That morning, Michael arrived at school as usual, but what he did next was far from ordinary. He put earplugs in his ears, a chilling sign of his calculated intentions, and pulled out the loaded pistol from his bag. Without warning, he opened fire on a group of students who were holding a prayer meeting. In just a few seconds, he fired 10 shots, killing 3 young girls, Nicole Hadley, Jessica James, and Kay Steger, and injuring 5 others. The scene was chaotic and terrifying, with students running for cover and screaming in panic. Michael, however, showed no signs of stopping. It wasn't until he saw the devastation he'd caused that he dropped the gun and surrendered to the school principal. In a moment of shock, he turned to one of the surviving students and said, "Kill me, please. I can't believe I did that." The victims of this horrific act were young, full of life, and had bright futures ahead of them. Nicole Hadley, a 14-year-old freshman, played in the school band and on the basketball team. Jessica James, 17, was a talented member of the marching band. Casey Steger, 15, was an honor student with dreams of becoming a police officer. Their lives were cut short in a matter of seconds, leaving their families and the entire community devastated.
I'm forced to continue with every day getting harder and harder as the years pass. Michael sentenced me to life in a wheelchair without the possibility of parole.
Michael Carneal was soon arrested and charged with murder and attempted murder. During his trial, his mental health became a central focus. He pleaded guilty due to his mental illness, and the court accepted his plea. Michael was diagnosed with schizophrenia and other mental disorders, and it was clear that he'd been struggling with severe paranoia and depression even before the shooting.
It is something that is inside my mind. This is produced by my mind.
In 1998, Michael was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. However, his mental illness continued to affect him during his incarceration. During the sentencing, Michael remained expressionless, showing no signs of remorse for his actions. Over the years, he attempted to appeal his sentence, claiming that he was too mentally ill to have made a guilty plea, but his appeals were denied. In 2022, Michael Carneal became eligible for parole, but his hearing did not go as he had hoped. The parole board unanimously denied his request, ordering him to serve out the remainder of his life sentence. This decision meant that Michael would spend the rest of his life in prison with no chance of ever being released. This is Timothy Simpkins.
I just asked for another chance.
He was an 18-year-old student at Timberview High School in Arlington, Texas, who shocked the nation with his actions on October 6, 2021. That day, what started as a regular school morning quickly turned into a nightmare when Timothy pulled out a gun during a classroom altercation and opened fire, leaving 3 people injured. It all began during the second period, around 9:15 a.m., when Timothy got into a heated argument with another student named Zacchaeus Selby. The argument quickly escalated into a physical fight, with the two exchanging blows in the middle of the classroom. As the fight intensified, Timothy, who'd been carrying a firearm, made a terrifying decision. In a moment of anger and desperation, he pulled out the gun and started firing. Panic and chaos erupted in the classroom as students and teachers scrambled to find cover. Timothy's shots hit 3 people, including Zacchaeus, who was left in critical condition. A teacher who tried to intervene was also shot, while another student was injured by a ricochet. The second teacher was hurt while trying to escape the terrifying scene. The sound of gunfire echoed through the school, sending shockwaves through the entire building. After the shooting, Timothy fled the school, leaving behind a scene of fear and confusion. The school was placed on lockdown as police and emergency responders rushed to the scene. Timothy's flight from the crime added to the tension as law enforcement launched a manhunt to find him. However, later that same day, Timothy turned himself in to the authorities, bringing a brief sense of relief to the community. Timothy Simpkins was quickly charged with 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of unlawful possession of a firearm in a prohibited place. His arrest marked the beginning of a legal process that would eventually lead to his trial. In July 2023, Timothy stood before the court to face the consequences of his actions. Throughout the trial, the prosecution painted a picture of a young man who had made a series of reckless decisions that led to tragedy.
There's not one excuse for what he did. He didn't need for anything.
He's a dealer. Everything about him tells you that's true. Did you see a tear at any time in the courtroom when the video was being played or what did that? Did you see a possible tear when you looked at any of these victims and their families and said, I'm sorry?
The defense, on the other hand, tried to argue that Timothy had acted out of fear and self-defense during the fight with Zacchaeus.
Mr. Simpkins was brutally attacked. He was sitting in a classroom doing his schoolwork. That is not high-risk activity.
Despite the arguments, the evidence against Timothy was overwhelming. During the trial, Timothy's behavior in the courtroom became a point of contention. While on the stand, he apologized for his actions.
I understand what I did was wrong. Very, very wrong. And I'm sorry. I truly am sorry. I just asked for another chance.
However, his apology seemed hollow to many, especially to the victims and their families. One of the teachers who was shot took the stand and addressed Timothy directly.
And let you know that I sincerely appreciate your apology, and I completely recognize how difficult it must be to admit that. It takes a great amount of courage, but I'm not ready to accept your apology yet. I hear you, and I appreciate it, but I'm not ready to accept it yet. However, for the pain and suffering you have inflicted upon the people I love, I'm not sure if I can forgive you.
Throughout the trial, Timothy showed little emotion, and his lack of visible remorse only fueled the anger of those affected by his actions. The jury deliberated for about 5 hours before reaching a verdict.
Members of the jury, I have received and accepted your verdict, and I do find that it is unanimous verdict of the individual jurors. Having found the defendant guilty of the offense of attempt to commit the offense of capital murder.
On July 24, 2023, Timothy Simpkins was sentenced to 12 years in prison and fined $6,000. The sentence marked the end of the trial, but not the end of the pain for the victims and their families. This is Sky Boucher. He made headlines on April 20th, 2018 when he launched a shooting at Forest High School in Ocala, Florida on the 19th anniversary of the Columbine High School massacre. Forest High School, known for its engineering program and vibrant green and gold colors, was a place of learning and pride for its students. That day, however, it became the scene of a frightening attack. Sky Boucher, a 19-year-old former student of Forest High School, arrived at the school with a sawn-off 16-gauge Winchester Model 12 pump-action shotgun hidden in a guitar case. Dressed in a black tactical vest, Boucher seemed to have carefully planned his attack. Once inside the school, he fired a shot through a classroom door, injuring a student in the ankle. The quick response from the school staff and law enforcement helped contain the situation rapidly. Boucher surrendered almost immediately after the shooting, avoiding a more devastating outcome.
Down on the ground. What the Put your hands behind your back.
I said the gun's in front of the restroom.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sir.
What are you
I wasn't raised by the right people.
Are you kidding me? How did you get up here with a shotgun? You just carried it up here?
Yes, sir.
Are you kidding me? What stairs did you go? Holy cow.
The aftermath of the shooting saw Boucher facing serious legal consequences. He was charged with multiple offenses related to the attack.
That's why I put down the gun. I could have kept going. There was no officers there to stop me. I put it down because there was a girl there. She didn't run from me. She just, I shot through the door. I could have shot her, but I don't know. I just couldn't do it.
In 2021, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. However, this isn't just any ordinary prison term. Boucher will have to serve at least 25 years before he can be considered for parole. After serving his prison term, he will face an additional 30 years of probationary release. This lengthy sentence reflects the gravity of his crime and ensures that he will be closely monitored for decades to come. During his court proceedings, Boucher's behavior was notably subdued. He didn't put up a fight or offer much explanation for his actions. His surrender and the lack of further violence during the incident surprised many people and may have contributed to his legal outcome. This is Andy Williams. He became infamous for a tragic school shooting that took place on March 5, 2001 at Santana High School in Santee, California. At just 15 years old, Williams walked into a boy's bathroom with a loaded .22 caliber revolver, which he'd taken from his father's locked gun cabinet. In a shocking and horrifying act, he began shooting indiscriminately. Williams first targeted a freshman, then left the bathroom and continued firing at other students. His rampage resulted in the death of 2 students, Brian Zucker and Randy Gordon, and injured 13 others. Before the shooting, there were signs that Williams was struggling. He had reportedly tried to talk to a school counselor about being bullied, but his attempts were unsuccessful as the office was busy. Despite his complaints about being picked on and even threats of bringing a gun to school, no substantial action was taken. Williams had also expressed a desire to pull a Columbine and had even planned to shoot from the roof of the school, but these threats were dismissed as jokes by his peers. When the shooting started, chaos erupted. Students and teachers scrambled for safety while the school was quickly put on lockdown. A student teacher and a campus security officer who went to investigate the sounds were shot by Williams. As the police arrived, they faced difficulty getting into the school due to the throng of fleeing students. Inside the bathroom, Williams was found reloading his weapon. Calmly, he surrendered to the officers, saying, "It's just me, I'm the only one." Following his arrest, Williams was charged with multiple crimes. On June 20th, 2002, he pleaded guilty to all charges in a bid to avoid a trial. On August 15th, 2002, he was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. Initially, he served time in a juvenile facility until he turned 18, after which he was transferred to an adult prison. Williams expressed remorse during his sentencing and apologized for his actions. However, his remorse seemed shallow and superficial compared to the severity of his crimes. During his court appearance, Williams's demeanor was unsettling. While he showed some remorse, there was a disturbing calmness to his behavior. He was transferred to various prisons over the years, including Calipatria State Prison and later the California Institution for Men in Chino. He will be eligible for parole in September 2024. Despite several appeals for a retrial and a commutation of his sentence, all attempts to alter his conviction have failed. The shooting left a lasting impact. It prompted the development of regional active shooter response training and inspired a memorial candlelight vigil held on the shooting's 20th anniversary. Williams's case was also referenced in media, such as the song Youth of the Nation by POD. In an interview, Williams revealed he'd been struggling with suicidal thoughts and felt numb, not realizing the full extent of the tragedy he was causing. Ultimately, he admitted his original intention was to be killed by the police, but he decided to surrender at the last moment. This is Dimitrios Bogoutsis, the 17-year-old student who shocked the world with his horrific act on May 18, 2018 at Santa Fe High School in Texas. That day, the school became the site of one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history, claiming the lives of 10 people, including 8 students and 2 teachers. 13 others were wounded. Bogoutsis, who was a student at the school, was quickly apprehended and charged with the brutal crime. The tragedy unfolded early in the school day at 7:32 a.m. Bogoutsis started his attack in the art complex of Santa Fe High School, a building with interconnected rooms. He targeted 2 classrooms, gaining access by breaking a door window. During the shooting, the school's fire alarm was pulled by a staff member, prompting an evacuation. One witness described how Bogoutsis walked into a classroom and while shooting sang "Another One Bites the Dust." In a terrifying display of cruelty, he even shot through a barricaded door and taunted a student he knew before killing him. As the shooter continued his rampage, he was eventually confronted by school police officers and a state trooper, who managed to get him to surrender after a brief but intense standoff. He was captured with injuries and the scene was chaotic, with parents and students eventually being reunited at a nearby gym. Bogoutsis' preparation for the attack began months before the shooting. He purchased ammunition online without any age verification, using his real name and address, but opting out of the adult signature requirement. His choice of firearms, a shotgun and a revolver, were legally owned by his father. Investigators found that Bogoutsis had even planned to use explosive devices, including a Molotov cocktail, which added to the horror of his actions. The aftermath of the shooting saw Bogoutsis charged with capital murder and aggravated assault. He was held without bail and faced a maximum sentence of life in prison. prison. His defense team requested a change of venue, citing the high-profile nature of the case. Despite being initially set for trial in Richmond, the proceedings were delayed. By late 2019, it was determined that Pagutsis was unfit to stand trial due to mental health issues. He has since been in mental health treatment, and his competency to stand trial has been questioned multiple times. His case continues to be delayed, with further hearings scheduled. The families of the victims have not only been grappling with their loss, but have also pursued legal action against Pagutsis' parents. They argue that the parents were negligent in securing their firearms and in not addressing their son's mental health needs. This lawsuit is set to go to trial in 2024, highlighting ongoing concerns about accountability and the safety measures in place. In response to the tragedy, the community rallied to support the victims' families. A candlelight vigil was held and 10 white crosses were placed in front of the school to honor those who died. Fundraisers and donations, including financial support for funeral expenses and a permanent memorial, helped ease the burden on the grieving families. The shooting also prompted increased discussions on mental health support and school safety measures in Texas, with legislative action aimed at improving mental health care for children.